Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Creator Combos, which we have every Thursday night. It used to be just a third Thursday, now it's every Thursday night, where we invite people to share their gift to the ship. We like to be blabbermouths for good and let other people know about all the amazing people that are out there, the light workers that are bringing so many gifts to humanity. So I'm Noelle Marshall, and together with my beloved Bob Warner.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the evening. We're looking forward to this.
And together we call ourselves Light Partners, and we also act as stewards of the Co-Creators Convergence. So I'm just going to welcome Mark Porteous, our dear friend, who is going to be our host for the evening. Thank you, Mark, for bringing another amazing guest.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and we get to meet someone we've never met before, Maureen Whitehouse. And nice. I'm very curious about this woman because, wow, reading her bio and everything, and also being a Course in Miracles mentor and a miracle mentor in so many different ways, I'm really looking forward to learning more from you, about you. So yes, welcome. Right now, before we get started here, I'm going to play a little video to tell everyone a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. Then we'll come back. I'll turn it over to you, Mark and Maureen, and I'll do a little more introduction of Mark before I hand it off to Maureen, and then Maureen will lead us in a wonderful meditation, and then you two are off to the races. And Bob and I will be doing tech. We will be sharing to at least a dozen different Facebook pages, and everyone is invited to put any comments, questions in the chat. So that's how we're going to roll tonight. Sound good?
Let's party.
All right, let's go. Hold on. Stand by.
Lovely.
Thank you and welcome. So before we begin this evening, I want to tell you a little bit about our host for the evening, this generous soul, Mark Porteous, who we met in 2012 through Barbara Marx Hubbard. So Mark is a soul connector. He stands for all people to recognize themselves as divine beings who have chosen this human experience for a reason and to live in alignment with that knowing, so they can thrive in their purpose of transforming lives. He helps mission-driven entrepreneurs to make their soul connections so they can impact and change the world, scale their business to 6 and 7 figures, and enjoy thrilling soul success in every arena of their lives. He's also quite an entrepreneur. You can find more about Mark Porteous at markporteous.com. And then also, if you want to meet him in the flesh or online, he is having a gathering in Orlando, Florida, February 9 through 11. You can find out more about that at soulaffiliatealliance.com. So I highly recommend that. So Mark, I think I'm going to bow out at this time and allow you to introduce Maureen, who I'm so excited to meet, and we'll be riding side saddle with you all evening. And just a joy to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle. I appreciate it so much. And thank you, Bob, in the background. I just want to also celebrate our 10-year anniversary. It was early in 2012 that we connected while you were on your world tour. You flew in on your plane to the Sanford airport where I met you with our family. We did an interview. It was just absolutely a magical way to start our relationship, and to see 10 years later all that you've done with the co-creators convergence and bringing more and more light into the world. I remember being at the first, my first, it was I think your third co-creators convergence, I think back in 2014, that it made such a huge impact in my life. Two of the big takeaways from that were around how do I balance my personal life with my family and my business, and the two big ways I wanted to make an impact. And the response back was that about keep doing what you're doing, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. The other thing was about and such a huge piece of it about how do I be the change? How do I be the shift, which is the whole idea of this program. And it was about being more of who I am. That was the big answer that we got from the whole co-creators convergence that year. And I've been striving to do that ever since. And I'm super excited to have my guest today, Maureen Whitehouse, here with me. She's a part of our MetaMind, and she was introduced by our dear friend Deborah Poneman to us. And I just feel like it was one of those miracles, and I'm excited to share the miracles with your audience today. So thank you so much, Bob and Noelle, for creating this platform. And to introduce Maureen Whitehouse is a sought-after inspirational speaker, award-winning best-selling author, and the founder of the Axiom Institute. She has served as both teaching fellow at the Harvard Divinity School and research fellow at Harvard's Langer Mindfulness Lab. She's been guiding others through their transformative journeys since 1996, after she experienced a spiritual awakening facilitated by her intensive study at A Course in Miracles. She has since served as a miracle mentor and spiritual teacher, helping those in the midst of their life's greatest pains to find greater fulfillment, inner peace, and miraculous healing. You can find out more about her work and receive a copy of her ebook, The Miracle Worker's Guide to the Galaxy. I highly recommend downloading a copy of The Miracle Worker's Guide to the Galaxy at maureenwhitehouse.com, and enjoy listening to her podcast at miraclerenegade.com. Hello, Maureen.
Hello, hello. So good to see you and to be in this forum where we're focused entirely on miracles. Very fun.
It is so fun, and it's been almost a year, 9 months that we've been working together and getting to know your work like deeply. Renee's been really into the weeds of helping to deliver the message that you have, and the first piece of it is this Miracle Worker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Right.
I wonder, before we go into anything else, tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go into how did you create that? How did you get to where you are? But let's start right off with that piece.
Actually, I wanted a lighthearted approach that would be something that would appeal to everyone who might be a healthy skeptic, or maybe thought they experienced a miracle once upon a time, or they were really intrigued by miracles, but it was not the heavy duty kind of invitation or experience. It's kind of a lighthearted, come on in. This is what the foundation of miracles are, and they're really here for everyone. It's actually our birthright. I like to say, you were a miracle the day you were born. No one denied that. You came in here with your first breath, and every breath that you've ever breathed while you're on planet Earth is a miracle, and you'll leave with your last. And if we stay connected to that part of us, then we're actually capable of inherently being connected to a miraculous world.
That's a beautiful introduction, and that leads well into maybe setting up a creation of an experience, and actually going into a little bit of a meditation before we start the interview based off of that. How about that?
It is a perfect segue, because I'd like everyone to just settle in for a moment. Maybe if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and allow yourself to go inward. This is where the origination of miracles is inside of each and every one of us. So as I said, you came in with your first breath and you've breathe that breath every single day of your life, all day, every day, and you'll leave with your last. So the best way to connect to this miraculous being that you are is to focus on your breath. So just allow yourself now to settle in and begin to notice your breath. And allow yourself just to focus on the next big, deep, and deliberate inhale. Breathe all the way up from your hips to the top of your head. And allow yourself now just to expand beyond the confines of your physical body with that breath. Just breathe so deeply that you're wide, 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 and vast, vast, vast. And then on the exhale, just let go, let go, let go. Another nice, big, deep, and deliberate inhale. Feel yourself expanding beyond the confines of your physical body. And on the exhale, just let go, let go, let go. On this next big, deep, and deliberate breath, breathe through every cell and organ and system of your body. Breathe deeply, deeply, and deliberately, knowing that you're co-joining with spirit in this very act of breathing. And then let go, let go, let go, and feel yourself united now with the divinity of you. And now that you're in this place, this centered space, allow yourself just to abide here. It's a word we don't use very often. Just abide, just be. No performance necessary. And notice if your eyes are closed, you're in a spacious place. No edges. Feel it now. Just notice there are no edges. This is an unconditional space. And allow yourself now to recognize that you can do this any moment of any day. Just close your eyes, take some big, deep breaths, and allow yourself to enter into this vast and spacious place within you. And realize this is not an empty void. This space within you is full of the divine, full of the voice of your own best interest ready to speak with you now. Just allow yourself to move into what appears to be silence, but it's actually your communion with the divinity of you now. And as you practice this kind of meditation or just being, just letting yourself be, closing your eyes and breathing, you'll begin to get more and more aware of the something more that abides within you and is here to communicate with you always. So now just allow yourself to feel that for a few moments more, relish that, nowhere to go, nothing to do, just listening to my voice. And feel now that you have never been dropped, you've never been left out of a divine and miraculous life. And it's your time now to connect with that from this moment forward. So just allow yourself to gently come back into that space that you're in, bringing all that awareness with you. And as you arrive, just bring your brilliant self and all of your attention to this very moment. And tonight, we're just going to bask in a world of miraculousness where only miracles are real. You're the miracle, and here you are anchoring it. So great. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Maureen. I love that container, and I love that edgeless container.
Isn't it nice?
I love that we can pop into it anytime.
Right.
And it's really interesting because that's a kind of a nice segue too to our conversation today about miracles. And a lot of people might think of miracles as something exceptional, something that doesn't happen ordinarily. But you really talk about finding miracles in everyday life, and the really about the practicality and how to actually bring that into us.
Right.
I want to hear about it, and I also want to hear about how you became the expert on bringing miracles into people's lives.
Yeah. So I never expected to. It wasn't on my radar at all to be a spiritual teacher or a miracle mentor. I actually just picked up a course in miracles because I had been a commercial actress, and I had been doing that for many years. And for me, a miracle would have been to get a national commercial, because you get residuals and you have pay coming in when you're not even working. And I was a spiritual person ever since I was a young kid. I really liked going to church when no one else was there. I didn't like it when people were there. It kind of got me scared. I was also very shy. But when I would go in and the candles would be lit and I just find this sanctuary, I was always drawn to that. And I'd go on off hours by myself, even as just a little kid, as 6 and 7 years old. I could walk to the church from my home. And I kind of put it on a back burner, like most people do in their 20s when it's time to party. You don't want to hear what you're not really being a good person. So you kind of want to ignore that and just live the life that you would mostly live in your 20s or 30s. So I was a commercial actor by another series of spiritual experiences. I read the book Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And for the first time, I found the book on a coffee table in my parents' home. When I started skimming it and I started reading it, I was shocked because I didn't even know that your thoughts mattered. Like, I had no idea that what we thought created anything in our lives or had any impact on our life. So I took it home and I really poured over it to the point that I became like the poster girl. And so much so that he actually wrote about me later on. I wound up living in New York City. I was a teacher in Rhode Island at the time. And I started just saying, well, what about, infinite possibility? And I actually became Miss Rhode Island. I don't tell this to many people, so this is really weird going back here. And wound up a runner-up in the Miss America pageant, wound up going to New York City. So I stopped teaching and wound up working as a model and a commercial actor, and went to Norman Vincent Peale's Collegiate Church on Fifth Avenue for a period of time too. It was pretty fun. And so I was well versed in the fact that spirituality is real and that we have a capacity to think positively. But then as I grew in this experience, I started feeling like I wasn't getting very adept anymore at being positive, because it felt like I was like, pouring pink paint on things that didn't feel very comfortable. I had, by this time in my 30s, I had 2 small children and I had been really good about being positive. So my whole life looked like it was like the perfect life, but something was really missing. And it was like, I felt like a deep cavernous void. Felt like my heart was always in my throat, or my heart was always stuck down in the pit of my stomach. It just was never comfortable. And I didn't understand, because I did my best, based on all those principles of positive thinking and being spiritually minded, being a good person. And I didn't understand what's wrong with me. I felt very ungrateful because I had a wonderful husband, beautiful home, beautiful children. Everybody could have been on a commercial set with me, my dog, everyone. And it looked like the picture perfect life, but I was empty. So I was in a new age bookstore in Brookline, Massachusetts, called Hori-san was the name of it. And the people who started the bookstore were disciples of Ramana Maharshi. So they were very devout, and they had a really good way of curating books and things. And it was between auditions. There happened to be a film studio a couple blocks away. Went into the bookstore, and I was feeling that sense of like, what's wrong with me? And is this all that life has to offer? And it looks so good on the outside. It's like the picture perfect life, white picket fence, everything. And something's terribly wrong. And I remember saying, I have to find a way to have a life that feels fulfilling. And I don't know how. I think I did this, positive thinking to the hilt. And if that's all there is, then I'm screwed, basically. And so I was at that point and said, please, help me. And I saw this book across the bookstore on a shelf, and it was like literally shiny. It scared me because it was something that I just didn't know why I was so compelled and why it was like really shiny. And so I went over, I remember it was underneath the windows. I went over, I picked it up, and it fell open to a passage in A Course in Miracles that if you're a student, you know this one well. It's one of the lessons. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. And at that time in my life, I didn't realize that was my problem. I was a commercial actor. I get on there, I bite and smile, I hang clothes on me to be a model. My kids were needing, I was constantly being the person that had to pick up this or do that and making everything picture perfect for this body to appear like it has everything all together. And I looked at that passage and I started to cry right in the bookstore. And I closed it, and I'm surprised, but I bought the book. I went to the register, got it, and took it home and put it immediately on a bookshelf because I was like, I don't know if I can read that book, but I wanted it in the house. And I remember going by it many times as I walked through the living room, and I'd say, I got to read that book someday. It always cracks me up when people say they like read the Course in Miracles like you're going to read a novel. But so I wound up one day taking it down off the shelf. And when I started to read it, it scared me because it looked like it was mind training or something. So I immediately went to the back of the book to make sure that there was no cult that I was being inculcated into. As the scared person. The reason why the title of this talk is Everything You Wanted to Know About Miracles, But Were Afraid to Ask, is because miracles are evident in love, and fear is the opposite. And if you're afraid to ask, then you're in fear, then just let yourself relax. Just relax. You're already loved. You're already perfect. You're already there. We just forget when that fearful voice takes over. So I started doing A Course in Miracles, but at the time I thought, I'm not letting anybody, if this is good, then I'm going to just do this wholeheartedly. If it's not, then I don't have to tell anybody. They won't think I'm freakish or anything or wanting to know about miracles. I hid it under my couch. And then I'd take it out every day when the kids went to nursery school and were in school. And I started doing the lessons. And it took me almost 3 years to go through the lessons. I didn't know anybody else that was doing it. I didn't know anything else about anybody else's anything. I just knew that if I could be the poster girl for Norman Vincent Peale and wind up in New York City from that if this was legitimate, then it was going to make an impact on my life. And so somewhere around the 2-year mark or so, I started to feel that discontent I was talking about with everything being so picture perfect, even more so. And it's funny that I started saying, I got to find a better way. And then I started to say, I don't understand this book. It's very confusing. It made me feel stupid when I started to try to read the text. So I defaulted to the lessons. And again, if it said, be the light of the world today, and today's the day, I'd be like, at the end of the day, I'd say, I couldn't do that. And my default was, I'm not Mother Teresa. I'd always say, I'm not Mother Teresa. I can't do this. But I kept at it. And then finally, I, at one point, started to say, I don't understand this. You have to help me. And I started to hear the voice of it's described, the voice is Jesus. And he started to personalize it for me. He started to help me personally get the things by telling me things. And when I was writing them down, they were so beautiful. And so like the same kind of poetic, beautiful nature that it would like annihilate my mind and throw me into my heart space. I just felt this huge love. And he became my best friend for like the last year. He was the one who was my personal tutor for it. And at the end, I remember I don't think I did what it said. I didn't know what it was saying to do. I thought, okay, I want to get a commercial in the beginning. And then I was like, no, this is not about just getting a commercial. This is about way more than that. But I still didn't know what was happening. I just felt this like major revolution going on inside of me that was upending my world. And so at one point, the path of A Course in Miracles, if people want to get the streamlined version of what it is, it's forgiveness. You forgive everything and everyone in your life that you thought you had a grievance with. but it's a different kind of forgiveness. It's the kind of forgiveness where only a wise sage could know this. If you're unconscious or asleep or unaware in life, you'd never know this, that you're not really forgiving a situation or a person. Had you been connected to your divine self and had you walked into the situation connected to the divinity of you, it never would have happened that way. So it's about a different brand of forgiveness that you didn't see it clearly. You couldn't have seen it clearly while your ego was coloring the picture. So I didn't get that at the time, but I remember coming to the place where I had forgiven methodically for all those years, everyone. One of the last people to forgive was my brother. I didn't know why, but it was because I had an Italian mother, so he was like the one that was put up on the pedestal. He could get the D's, and he'd be the one that was always like, you're good for him. And so I resented him, but then when I got let go of that one, it was sort of like, no, you never really resented him. But there was one person left to forgive, and it was me. I had no idea it was me. I had no idea that I was the problem in my own life, that I was the one that had been beating myself up incessantly. I was the one that listened to that committee of voices in my head that was telling me you're not good enough, or try harder, or do this, even when I was doing the best I could. We all are, always. And so I remember it was a very interesting thing. I never did anything like this before, but my kids were in school, and I got to that revelation about I got to forgive myself. And I literally went on my knees next to a chair in my living room. And I said, Maureen, I forgive you. I didn't know what for. I just knew I was being told to forgive myself. And in that moment, it clicked. It made so much sense that I never have to do that again. I never have to beat myself up. I never have to approach my life like I'm in a contention every minute with every moment of life. Like I got to save and defend myself. And I was doing that. And when that dawned on me, it was like my heart opened and I started to feel this bliss that was just like, there was no reason for it. It was just love. And I remember that I sat down again, and I always used to write down what I was hearing to make sure I was hearing it clearly. And I remember that day, Jesus said to me, you've come to the point of chasm between my world and your own. You are about to experience the great resolve. I had never heard that. that's the only voice I ever heard that from. I never heard it since. And I didn't know what that meant, but I thought, cool, I'm in bliss, so I'll just enjoy whatever that is. And that night, my husband was out of town, and I had the kids in bed with me because at that time I'm a very fearful person. And I had the dog perched at the window, ready to growl or bark if anything was coming. I had the alarm on. I had a pair of scissors under my
Baby
bed.
monitor was on.
Everything you could possibly have, made yourself safe with. And I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and in the past, anytime other than this night, that would have been untenable for me because I knew I wouldn't go back to sleep, and I would have stayed up the rest of the night fretting over this is dark and this is scary. And I was just a scared person. And I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and instead of being scared, I still felt that blissful energy. And I started to feel some cramps in my stomach. And I said, well, I believe in miracles. Now heal this. And I immediately shot out of my body and went into the heart of God, directly into the heart of God, which I can't describe in any way, shape, or form, but it was unconditional love that there is no opposite to. And I'm talking about this like a normal person now. This took me about 10, 12 years to be able to even talk about this without, crying, because of the experience was so profound that there was no opposite to love. How do we not, we can't fathom that. So it felt like falling upward into a down comforter of love and being so soft and so embracing. I stayed there for I don't know how long, but as I started coming down, I went through a classic near-death experience where I saw all of my life. I went right in to watching all of the pain of my life. That was the interesting thing. All of the things I had been most fearful of, all of the pain, all the micromanaging, all of everything, big things in my life that had been awful to experience. But I saw them through the eyes of God. I saw them while I was connected to my divinity. And there was this like rolling, thunderous chuckle that was really rolling through my body, saying, laughing, like laughing. Now you see how I see. Now you see how I see. Now, this part makes me want to get teary again because it's with such benevolent love, all love. And I'm seeing now how the divine sees us in our worst challenges as infinitely capable of transcending anything and at one with perfect love. So it was like, this is a joke. How did I not know that I'm one with God? How did I not know that I'm divine? And so from that point, I'm seeing God as what God is. No more need to micromanage that. Who's going to micromanage life after you know that God is real and God truly is love? And Judgment Day is us being able to judge ourselves how we judged everything wrongly. It was really a gift for us to transcend everything because we can, because we have the capacity for that, but we don't know that. So at the other side of all of this, I came down in all these layers. And when I came out of it, I was on fire. I felt like the fire that saints and mystics talk about. And so I looked and I see the kids are still asleep. I look at the clock, it's 7:30 in the morning. I came back like this. And I realized it was my first breath that I had breathed since 3:00 in the morning. I had no idea since then. I'd been to India multiple times and talked with yogis and saints and sages. That's a state of samadhi that Hindu tradition tries to get you, a breathless state. It's the state where you're not in your body. So I had this fire going on in me, and I decided, wow, I got to get the kids to school. What happened to me? So I decided I'd go into the bathroom, which was adjacent to my bedroom, to splash water on my face. And when I got to the sink and I decided to compose myself, I came up and looked in the mirror and I saw myself without a body. I saw myself as pure spirit, looking at me with eyes that were so loving that I nearly fell down. I nearly fell down because we can't imagine how much our divine being loves us. And so I looked at that and I said, again, how did I not know? And I said, my God, I've been a model for that by that time for like 18 years. I'd seen and been and worked with the most beautiful people on the planet. And not one of them looked as radiant or beautiful as what I was looking at in the mirror without my body. And so then that did not compose me, but I still decided I'm going to get the kids up. I have no idea how I was even doing it because I couldn't think. My mind was completely still. And I wound up going about my normal day. I brought the kids to school. When I bring them to school, I start watching. We had to pull cars up on the playground. And I remember watching the doors open and the kids go out, and I'm watching love running on the playgrounds. I'm watching love. All I could see was love. And the grass looked like splintered emeralds, and the sky was radiant, and the sunbeams, I could see everything in like this multicolored, techno-colored thing, I guess like an acid trip. It was just off the charts beautiful. And I took everything in me to keep myself off my knees because I could barely stand. Everything was more beautiful than the next. I remember going to a craft store because I had to get something for one of the kids' projects. And when I went into the craft store, I saw a woman pushing a girl in a wheelchair. And on her tray, this is going to make me cry, she had two buttons. One said yes and one said no. because she wasn't able to speak. And I followed her because she was so beautiful. She was so beautiful. And I wanted her to know how beautiful she was. And I remember I couldn't get the courage up to say, do you know how beautiful you are? But she looked at me and she hit yes. And I just like things like that. I went into to Kmart to get my, I didn't expect this to happen. I went into Kmart to get a greeting card. And when I picked it up, I saw all of the woman who had illustrated it, putting her kids on the bus and the things that went on behind that to get the picture on the card, to get that to me. And I thought, how do we not know that we are so connected to so many people behind the scenes? And I lived like that for 3 days. I couldn't think, and I watched all of life in its reality, in the reality that Jesus talks about in A Course in Miracles. Well, needless to say, my husband came back from being away on a business trip, and we went to lunch the day he came back. And I tried to describe what had happened to me. And I remember I'm sitting across from him at the table, and I started to talk about, I still am in the throes of it. I don't know what's happening. And I also didn't know if I would ever, if it would ever stop or what was going on. And so I started to talk with him about it, and he looked at me and he said, oh, that's cute. And I said, well, I know one thing, this is not cute. And I don't know what else it is, but I do know it's not cute. So I guess I'm not going to talk about this. I guess I'll just keep it to myself because I can't explain it. And so it was interesting that the next time I picked up A Course in Miracles, I had started after I finished the lessons a few months before that. And I was so sad that I was like, oh, I'm losing my best friend who's been helping me with these lessons every day. And now what do I do? So I started to finally start to read the text. I didn't get very far. But I got to the chapter that when I picked it up, I opened it up and it described what I was in the middle of. I opened up to the page what I was in the middle of. It's called The Forgiven World. And it starts out with, have you ever seen anything so lovely? And it's describing what I'm doing. I literally almost dropped the book because I realized at that point, where I couldn't understand it before this experience, I could turn every page and tell them where to cross the T and dot the I, where the period belonged. I knew A Course in Miracles. Overnight, I knew every word that it said, because what he was saying was beyond our human comprehension. Who's going to expect that that's what he's talking about when he's talking about the atonement, the at-one-ment? It's when we become one with our true selves. So I didn't expect that story to go on that long, but you're such an embracing audience that I guess that's why it poured out. But from that point on, I went to my first Course in Miracles meeting and met the first people that I knew from A Course in Miracles were at a little house down. It was almost the holidays, and went to this place thinking, well, I got to find these Course in Miracles people. I'm going to be pulling them off the ceiling. How do I know these people were on planet Earth? So I went hoping that they could tell me what happened to me. And I went, and there were just few people in a room, like a lot of Course in Miracles people have meetings in their homes. And they started immediately when they started it with a nice prayer and things, read a little passage, and then they started talking about their problems and how they were having a hard time understanding what the lesson said. And I said, at one moment, I said, oh my God, they don't know. I can't ask them. And then the next moment I said, oh, but I know. Like on the heels of that, I could see through their pain that they were talking about. Because I came out seeing through pain. I've seen through pain for the rest of ever since then, for anything and anywhere, in maximum security prisons, in hospitals, in school, anywhere I go, it's like, oh, okay, don't you see? Can't you see? At first I'd say, don't you see? And someone said, Maureen, stop saying that. They don't see.
They don't see it.
And then I was like, oh, okay. Because for me, I'm such a normal person, you know, so what? I was doing commercials and stuff. I still was the angsty person that is a normal person. And all I could think of is, at first I was like, why didn't you pick somebody like Mozart or somebody who could write poetry or somebody who could do, like, put this into words? I'm just normal. And then I realized, wait a minute, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I'm just normal. That's the best person to pick. And I've never lost sight of that even if someone thinks they're this or that, it's like, that's just your ego's story. Come on, here's who you really are. And the only reason I'm absolutely 1000% convinced of that is because that's me. That's what I did. That's what I thought. That's what I experienced. So ever since then, that's what I've been doing. I've been showing up. I really literally have been sent, you know, I had this, like in the beginning, I was going on commercial auditions and modeling auditions all the time. So I used to have a book where I just wrote down appointments and I'd go all over the place where they sent me. Well, now people started calling me because when I started talking to the people in that meeting, they didn't say much to me. So I thought, oh, I'm never going back there again when I left. But I started talking to them. When I left, someone called me the next week and said, could you come back again? And I said, well, you know, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's for me. I was just going to, again, live it silently. I didn't have to open my mouth. I said, this is okay. You can just live this. If I live it out loud, then it'll still help. I knew I didn't have to ever talk about it. And I was comforted in that because the reason that I modeled is because you didn't talk as a model. You could be having fun and creative things, but I was always painfully shy before that. And so when they asked me, I said no. And someone else called me and said, you know, Maureen, I'm going to be there, at a person that I did know. And so I said, okay, I'll go just one more time. When I got there, the place was packed. They had told people about, and I'm all like, whoa, okay, so maybe there are going to be people that I'll pick off the ceiling. I'm thinking this is a real meeting. Maybe it was just because it was the holidays last time where there weren't so many people. And then all of a sudden, they said, so we have somebody for you to meet. And they introduced me. And I was like floored. I did not expect to talk about this in front of people. But then from that point on, it just kind of did happen. And then I started facilitating that group and then other groups. And yeah, that's the long and short of it. I wound up being sent all over. But in the beginning, when people started calling me for help, it was very interesting because like I had used my appointment book to go on auditions, now I'd get appointments that people would say, could you, and I was just going to their houses, like doing house calls because I just didn't know what was, how to see if this stops someday.
Grocery miracle house calls.
Yeah. And it was fun for me. So I stopped kind of showing up for auditions and things. At that time, I was pretty much like the mom in Boston for commercials. And I was the one that everybody was like, she's the mom, and all hands in every commercials and all this stuff for supermarkets and things, AT&T. And I just kind of lost interest in that because this was so much more fascinating, seeing through pain. Who wouldn't want to do that instead of showing up on a commercial set where you're like holding a Kellogg's box for 2 hours trying to get them in the perfect position? I remembered at times we had been on commercial sets and said, look at all these people. There would be like 150 people on a commercial set to light a box of cereal and to take my hands or me smiling and we'd say, can you imagine if we were actually doing something that mattered? Which brings me to an interesting point. I met Barbara Marx Hubbard in Hollywood one time because right around 2012, maybe, or 2011, she was interested in a group, and maybe you know this, Mark, of people who wanted to do conscious media. And so there was a big event that she was at that she held that I was there, and I always wondered what happened with that group because it's such an amazing and outstanding group of creatives, and she was there, and that was when I met her first time. And so this is fun because to have things like, I'm sure she's here. I'm sure
Yeah,
she's
oh yes. Oh my goodness.
listening to all of this
every week.
And here we are. This is conscious media.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just one more thing about this before we get into questions and stuff is that when I would get people calling me, it was as if I had this supreme virtual assistant or something, because they would wind up being within blocks of each other with a great restaurant in between for lunch. And I'd say, well, when do you want me to come? And where are you? I didn't know anything. And it was always seamless. Like they would be in the same town. And then the next 2 days later, it was in a completely different town on the other side of Boston. And it would be 3 people over there. And I was thrilled that happened, because I knew I couldn't do that. And that I knew I was being sent. And that I knew even though I didn't know what I was doing at the time, I just was opening my mouth and helping. I was confident that I was being sent. So I knew that it wasn't me being egotistical. The last thing on earth I ever wanted to ever happen to me again was having ego come back and take this away, take my divine connection away.
I love that. I love that. And I love the whole full circle. There's so much richness in there that we want to dig into. We'll come back to the Barbara Marx story, because I think Bob and Noelle might have some answers for you. Again, I love the fact that seed was planted way back then, because it was around that time that they were planning for this Birth 2012 event that was this global thing, and why we're all here as part of this event now. So it is beautiful to see the full circle. It's also neat to see your hero's journey, and to hear details that I didn't know about that before, and that calling, the overcoming the dragons, and the getting the guides and the map, and then bringing that boon back to your community and being able to help them out. And a lot of people might compare themselves to you and say, well, I'm not her.
Yeah.
You call yourself ordinary, but you're a model. That's not ordinary. All of these things. You had a beautiful, perfect family. You have all these things, but all of that stuff is ordinary. Like, a lot of people don't see their extraordinariness, and the thing that even in that situation, you still had all of those fears. And that's what makes you ordinary, was all of those fears.
And all of the dysfunctions that come along with those kind of very superficially oriented things. When I opened the book and it said, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me, I was like, oh my God, I've been the utmost body for so many years. How did I not know that was the source of my pain? Here I am trying to, make it look better, make it be the one that they want to pick for that job, thinking that was the source of happiness. It was really, what better page could it have ever opened for me?
And again, all of this that you're sharing is still just your awakening.
Right.
This is still the beginning of the story. Since then, you've written a book. Is it Soulful Eating?
Soulful Eating, A Delicious Path to Higher Consciousness. Reason why I wrote that book is because I figured, again, let's normalize this. Somewhat like Miracle Worker's Guide to the Galaxy. Everybody eats. So if everybody eats, it makes us all have this commonality. So let's just approach being conscious with food. Let's just get them aware. And I literally wrote it to awaken people using food as a focus. And I remembered in a part of A Course in Miracles where Jesus was giving aspects of our divinity. And very clearly, it stood out for me like, one of those beams, that fullness, completion, fullness is an aspect of our divinity. So I wrote soul-full eating, because I knew if we approached eating and food, or that whole world of, think about it, you're preparing it, you're growing it, you're eating it, you're shopping for it. How much of your day is occupied with that?
Sure.
Well, if you're looking at that, so the theme is eat with love, what's grown with love, prepared with love, and served with love. Now you're in that soul full space, doing something you do all day, every day. The second book, it was very interesting, I didn't know I was writing a second book. I didn't even know I was writing the first book.
Right.
That was supposed to just be a chapter in another book on beauty. And it was supposed to be the beauty in food. But this one is called Food, A Love Story. And that's the companion book that I didn't know was going to exist until it came through me. And it's the story of a girl named Kate who says, I can't live with myself. I can't take it anymore. I've been yo-yo dieting for years, and I'm sick of myself. And well, that's the undoing that brings many people to a spiritual path. Hers just so happened to be around her body and food. And so this person shows up that her mom said, just call this lady, not knowing. And she thinks she's like a life coach, but she's an awake person. She comes in and for the next 30 days takes her through a path to awakening using food as the focus. That was all channeled, that one, by the way, 30 days of waking up using food as your focus. So yeah, I try to normalize it the best I can, but we're extraordinary. So how do you normalize that we're extraordinary? You know, we just don't know that all the time.
Absolutely. I want to bring a couple things back to the extraordinary. One is that same idea of awakening was Eckhart Tolle's story about how he could no longer stand himself and realize, wait, if I am me, how can I not stand me? There must be something other than me that I can't stand, and being able to understand that. So that was very, very interesting. And going back to being, we are all extraordinary and you are so ordinary, but not everyone has the Harvard experience that you have.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Harvard. I got to tell you about that. That was very interesting. So I didn't get my degree from Harvard until just a few years ago. And the reason why I did that is because I came back from living in Florida on the ocean. That was my sanctuary. I used to swim in the ocean every morning, and I used to lay in the sparkles and just like do my prayers that this was my altar. I am the light of the divine. And so I came back to New England, and my parents were getting at the point where they needed some help. And at the same time, my daughter came back and actually started working in the Harvard ceramics studio. And so I knew I was going to be here for a little while. And it was just such a nice transition to have me be in a new place. But I was like, what am I going to do here in Cambridge? I loved living on the ocean and having, not 10-foot snow winters and stuff that can happen in Boston. But I said, okay, you're in Cambridge. Well, squeeze every bit of juice out of that orange and let's see. And I literally went there to see if I could do this. This is what my own personal intention was, not do Harvard. It was see if I could keep a spacious mind. The way that I do what I do is I have a mind that doesn't need to think. From that one point on, I realized thinking is overrated. It's the thing that causes all our problems. So I thought, could I possibly do this? Like go in, I had been in all kinds of realms, prisons and hospitals and with little kids. I went when my kids were small. I was the person who taught like the Sunday school classes so that they wouldn't get enculturated. I wanted to teaching these kids. So I just say, find heaven in the grass. And I'd give them like all these things to do. Tell them, what's your idea of God? And all these things, and just keep it like they're already awake. Why am I going to put them to sleep? I was horrified when I got told in the teaching training for this that they don't know how to judge, so we have to teach them how to judge. And I said, oh, not mine. And so I had been in all these different realms. I wanted to see, how does this fit in here and here? It was more like all of these things I've done were basically to see, how does this look in those places? So this is one of the ones I didn't go in with scholars. And I thought, well, might as well squeeze all the juice out of the orange. And I wound up there, and it was synchronicities kind of led me there. And I really have to tell you, probably was one of the most challenging things I've done since awakening was keep a spacious mind while you're going into that analytical mode of like pulling things apart. And there's always an argument. Like, I don't argue with anything. You want that? Well, I'll just show you a better way, but I'm not going to argue with you. If you really want that, that's your business. And so I had to learn how to keep my spacious mind. So what happened, which was wonderful, I was wondering, am I going to get beat up here? Are they going to like take exception to me and think I'm too, out there? Instead, I made such wonderful friends in the professors. They loved having this perspective. Like my first class at Harvard was Angels, Messengers of God. And this woman is a genius. She's just amazing. Her name's Kimberly Patton. And she knew everything about angels. The book that we had that she had Xerox copy was like this thick, telling everywhere in all of the apocryphal texts and all of the every religion that refers to angels. This was like the consummate class on this is where angels are in every tradition, by the way. Well, I'm going in thinking, I don't want to know about the intellectual. I'm buddies with angels. Like I'm around angels all the time. They're my people. The invisible world is my home. And it was so fun because my first paper, I had been a science major in my undergrad. So I hadn't done papers very much. I had done, experiments and things in that major. So when I wrote my first paper for this class, I didn't even know that you're supposed to double space. I didn't even know that you're supposed to like put your name up there and things. And she read the paper and said, this is the best paper I've ever read on this subject, but could you please double space? And I thought, okay, this is okay. I'm not going to get beat up here. And I just stayed in that place where I realized these people are so committed, and true scholars are amazing. They dedicate their entire life to sometimes the most obscure and people would never even realize it. And they study that and know that so well and commit to that so well. To have somebody come in and validate what they were saying from a whole completely different perspective, but to arrive at the same place, it was very fun. So I did that. And then the research at the Langer Mindfulness Lab was super fun too. There were all these like Buddhist PhD students. And I loved that because we did these studies that were incredible to watch how the mind, how the mind colors our worlds. I knew that. I couldn't be the person, I had to be the person who did the blind studies because I couldn't be the person that would do the regular studies because I knew I could influence them. And so the fun part is Ellen Langer is this woman who was around with that group of people in the late 60s, 70s, like Andrew Weil, John Kabat-Zinn, who else? Dean Ornish. They all were the mindfulness group of people that started like Insight Meditation Society and all these other things. But she kept the scholarly root of having the lab that does all the studies. And so she's called like the mother of mindfulness. And it was very interesting when I first got into that, when they accepted me into that program, to just be one of the people that did the research. The day that it happened, she had an article in the New York Times that was front page in the section. It was one of the big sections. I can't remember which one, but it was a big picture and front page. And it said about a study she had done. And it was with these 80-year-old men that she brought to a place, broke them up into two groups, and had one group act as if they were back in the 1940s, and they had everything set up in this monastery place with these two places with the old radios. Everything was like that. Then the other group had to be in the 1940s, and not just act as though or have memories of it, to be back in that place. The only stipulation for these men was that they could actually get onto the bus without help and that they could carry their own suitcase. And when they were leaving the study, the men who had been acting and playing, like really talking as though they were back there, were playing tag football before they got back on the bus. Their minds had shifted so much. So she said, this article just came out in the New York Times, and she said, whoever's in this room right now, you're it. I'm closing the door. I'm a rock star now. Everybody wants a piece of me. I'm getting these people calling me from all over the world trying to get in here to do studies with this. So it was really fun because I'm guided miraculously to be in that room and doing these studies. And she says all of our problems. She says this in a video that you might be able, if you look up online, Ellen Langer. She says all of our problems are a result of lack of mindfulness. She said, I'm a scholar, so I can't say that in scholarly circles because they'll have to take exception with that. But all of our problems are a result of our lack of mindfulness. So it was really fun. And again, it was just a nice experience that I could be in that spacious mind and still find that we can keep ourselves above it. It's almost like that inmost and the utmost are the same, that when we go deeply inside, we find the same divinity that we find in the utmost. Same thing about that world of scholarly. I was happy to shake it off. I had like shake it off and get out of it when I was done. But I never knew all along the way if I was actually going to finish, because I said, if this starts breaking my brain, I won't do this. I won't give up my spacious mind for this. But I made it. I actually graduated, got my master's. So yeah.
That's really, really important story, and it's a perfect way to bring this full circle about, you're talking about miracles, and it can sound very woo, but the idea about it being very practical, and what is the practical side of it, and sharing this study where these elderly men really literally reverse their aging through this process of imagination and living that and being that. And so your Miracle Guide to the Galaxy provides some practical tips. I'm wondering if you could kind of ground in something, again, bringing all of this woo into reality of how mindful. And I love that quote about how maybe you could say it again about how all our problems come from mindfulness.
All of our problems are a result of our lack of mindfulness.
So what is a practical way for us to be more mindful? I guess that would be my question.
This is a great question, because I came up with a different definition of mindfulness, because it's one of the things that if you want to get on a search engine for meditation or things, you can say mindfulness because people know about it now because of the pioneers that are so, eloquent and have been so committed for their lives. But I say mindful the same way that I say soulful. It's not about our minds, it's about that fullness. So it's more like when you're being mindful, you're paying attention to what feels connected, what feels full, what feels complete, what feels whole. It's not the ego mind that has you going in 10,000 directions and is telling you, well, do this and then you'll be there, or get this and then you'll have the credentials or something. It's the fullness of us that we miss the most. We know there's a part of us that knows, just like that thing. I didn't know that this is pretty much a universal angst that I had. I'm just like maybe more extreme, that I can't live with myself if I'm in that place. But I knew there was something more. I just knew I'm missing something. There's something that I am not getting. It can't be this. This can't be all there is. And fortunately, there isn't. There is not. I'd say that the ego is fixated on a mundane world, where the divinity of us lives in a miraculous world. And the miraculous world in the world that I occupy and that Jesus has taught me about it's not even the most magnificent. It's only a way to put road posts on our path as we believe we're human beings, that we can live both worlds simultaneously until we decide, okay, that was fun. It wasn't real. It isn't the only thing there is. Today I just had a conversation with a girl who lost her mom yesterday to brain cancer. And it was so fun for me to be able to tell her about all the people and the experiences that I've had with people from the other side. My dad came back physically, all because I'm open to it, because this is my world. I know that miracles are real, and every day, all day, I bring people to that place. It was so wonderful that she had the beaming smile and was full of delight when she got off the call. And she said to me, this couldn't, and by the way, it was synchronistic. We hadn't planned this or anything. It just so happened. And I knew as soon as I knew what happened that I'm okay, give her the big guns, give her everything. And then she said at the end of it, I have to tell you that everything we talked about is everything I've been asking in my own prayers over the last week, that I want her to come to me, but I'm afraid. It's like I'm almost saying, Mom, let me know you're here, but don't let me know you're here. Because and I made it so normal for her with the stories that I told her, because these are normal people that happen to come to me, and then extraordinary things happen because we're miraculous, and I'm only reminding them that they're miraculous day after day. And then these things happen. And the fun part of being me, I guess, is that people say to me all the time, Maureen, you won't believe this. And I'm like, okay, of course I'm going to believe it. I'm telling you, it's happening. But it happens all the time. They don't know what else to say. Maureen, you're never going to believe this. So that's a super fun thing to experience all the time, is having people have these amazing, especially feel that. Like, what would you choose? Being the person who bites and smiles on a commercial and gets like a national commercial, or be the person who can have somebody whose mom just passed talk with you and leave laughing? That is just incredible for me to live that this lifetime. So yeah, very, very fun.
It is. Maureen, this has been such a special time for me. I love you dearly, and to get to hear these stories and share, like, we get to do it in a different way, but in this container, and to just get to see you shine your light. I hope that everyone that's been watching is inspired and gets to see the everyday miracles, and that idea about mindfulness is so, so important. So between mindfulness and having fun, doing what we're doing, taking those two things away is such an important and practical piece of what you do.
And the most important question you can ask yourself that aligns you with miracles is, am I enjoying this now? Because the voice of your own best interest that you begin to align with when you give yourself that quiet time and that space without edges is the voice of your own best interest. Here's what it wants for you. This is out of A Course in Miracles, your perfect happiness. There aren't very many people who want that for you on the planet. So why are you going to listen to them in any way, shape, or form? But also the other thing is if the divine wants your perfect happiness, thank God, literally, it's more powerful than you. You're not going to win. You will not win. That means you will find out your divine one way or the other. There's no doubt about that.
I love it. I love the voice of your best.
The voice of your own best interest. That's who I say, when people say the soul or your inner being, I say it's the voice of your own best interest, because that's the voice that I was listening to that helped wake me up. We all have it. We all came here to wake up. I might just be a couple of steps ahead on the path, but that's how I can do this so convincingly. I know you're next. You're next. You're next. You're next. There has to be. I can't be doing this, by myself. There are so many of us here that are here to awaken now.
Well, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to take back mindfulness and having fun and having the voice of your own best interest.
Now?
That is mine. The voice of your own best interest, because I believe that committing to your own soul's journey is the highest service that you can be to everyone else around you. So I love the way that you shared it. I again am so grateful, and I know that there's other questions out there. So are you open to some dialogue here?
I have to say I love Mark because he's the one who knows how to keep time. I'm always in this timeless, and he's the one who knows how to keep it on track. And
I think we're a little off track, but I did what I could.
No, sorry.
No, it's beautiful. Hi, Noelle. Welcome back.
Hi there. I
see Pamela here too.
Just blown my mind, and this is such a special call. I have my own Course in Miracles story that my mother-in-law studied it and gave us the book, and Bob and I started doing it and did a couple lessons in 2009, and then we moved the book, never did it again. And it was only during COVID that we picked it up again.
Wow. And
now we're just starting to understand some of her thought systems, some of the things that she would say. And she passed right before COVID. So she left, and then Course in Miracles came back into our life. And
because of her, by the way, she had more energy and power when she didn't have her resistance of her body to say, maybe I won't bother them with this. But then she came on with I'm sure.
That's funny.
Hey, I believe. There's no doubt. And I know, I'm just going to say one other thing, and I know Pamela wants to jump here. The gate. I was at that conference. Well, I was with Barbara Marx Hubbard. She left our conference to go to it.
To it,
Yeah,
yes.
it's the global entertainment.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Gate, you're right.
Yeah,
Global
Gate. Bob just
Alliance
found it.
for-
What's it? There it is.
Global Alliance for Transformational Entertainment.
Yes, how powerful. I think we have to bring this to life again somehow, everybody.
Well,
In fact,
really do.
you were at that event. The woman that eventually, another person in the room with you, Karen Everett, quit her job at Berkeley, where she was documentary film professor, and spent the next 4 years of her life doing the movie of Barbara Marx Hubbard's life.
Amazing. You know, I spoke with also with the man who was along with Barbara Marx Hubbard setting the whole thing up. And I told him, I'll do the version of this on the East Coast. I'll get it to be sponsored at Harvard because I was there at the time. And so, but we lost track, and I think things just somehow maybe got off track with that. I'm not sure, but what a great and amazing thing. And like I said, I'd be on those commercial sets and we'd all be these amazing, talented people say, what if we were using this for something that actually mattered? So yeah.
I love the connections that you guys were connected years ago, and the people leaving one conference to go to another. It's great.
Yeah.
We're right down the street from you because Barbara left our thing to go over to Gate.
Oh, how funny. Wow.
So,
And he was there announcing the Birth 2012.
Amazing. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's how we met Mark, was the Birth 2012 tour that we did around the country.
This is so fun, everybody.
It's a soul family reunion.
That we all know each other. Wow.
Oh, boy.
No,
Well, Pamela, I know you want to jump in here.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so excited. Mark, thank you for bringing Maureen, and what a delight. You just glow, and it is your love just reaches through the screen and touches all of us. It's so powerful, so meaningful. Thank you. And I couldn't help, I'm not a student of the course, but I have my own inner teacher, and it delivered to me, helped guide me, called The Blueprint for the Human Spirit. It opened my life in very amazing ways, and also brought intuitive work so that I can serve others in a number of ways. But one of the things that I have noticed recently when I have worked with people is that they're so focused on learning more and reading more that their heads seem like they're out to here. You know, it's like they have these huge heads. I sense that, you know, it's like crammed full of information. It's like they're trying to understand and grasp all this information, you know. And certainly I went through my spiritual junkie mode where I read every book and went to every workshop and all that, you know. But my question would be, how can we become this, what did you call yourself about? Like mindless,
Miracle mentor?
Miracle.
no, a mindlessness almost.
Oh, mindful.
Yeah. No, like no mind.
No mind.
Literally.
Yes, no mind, or something like that.
You asked the
Because-
perfect question. You really did, because you intuited something, and I'm sure it's because of you've been on a true and a powerful, authentic spiritual path. In A Course in Miracles, I don't know if it's in the manual for teachers or where, but the question is this the only path? And Jesus says, of course not. You know, how many people there are on the planet is as many paths as there are. But this is a path that's particularly fast, and I can attest to that because I did it this lifetime. But I do know when I work with people through things, it's a way of shifting your mind in the midst of your everyday life. That's much faster than going off and being in a cave for years or things, and then trying to come back into the shock of life and integrate it. This is like, okay, one shot deal. You're weaving the miraculous into your everyday life, or you're noticing the miraculous is woven into your everyday life. So you asked a perfect question, because I actually created a course that the Miracle Workers Guide kind of leads you to. That's called the Transformational Triad. One day, I told you I lived on the ocean, and I used to walk the ocean every morning at sunrise and then swim in the sparkles after that. And I was walking on the beach, and I had a query. I said, how could I teach this to people that they would be able to know it, to live it. And I immediately got a vision that was intact of this transformational triad, is what Jesus told me. He said, there's 3 phases that this will be what you particularly teach. Miracle mindedness, it's what we're talking about. You shift your mind so that you can see the miraculous in everyday life. It's not leave your life to go find it somewhere else. It's the miracles right here in your everyday life. And you begin to see the miraculous in the mundane. Once that happens, and this is the path that I've been bringing people on for 26 years now, that helps them get out the other side, to awaken, to live this, to experience them when they say, Maureen, you won't believe this, because they're living it. So that's your mind. You're shifting your mind to be miracle oriented. Then the next phase is miracle matrixing. Just like you said, how do you live this? It's drop it down to your heart, because I can say the most inspiring things. This could be great because I'm helping shift your mind in this conversation, but that's experiences that are inspiring. But the most important thing is that you experience it. So miracle matrixing is where you start to live this. You start, and that's pretty much what the lessons of A Course in Miracles do, make you live it every day. Like, I couldn't tell you how frustrated I was when it would say, today you're the light of the world. And I'd be like, yeah, not again. I know I'm going to fail at this because I've failed at it 10 times so far. And you keep telling me today's the day. This isn't the day. I didn't do it today. But he's relentless in having you live it, live it, live it. So the transformational triad goes to miracle matrixing, and I help people be able to drop it down into their heart so that your head is, again, not the significant part of this. You begin to see with that mind that's clear and that heart that's open. And then that's when you start experiencing miracles all the time yourself. Then it's like, oh yeah, I know people are going to find out that I'm right because they're going to live it. And I don't have to convince them, because ultimately, it's not me. The divine's going to take over. You're going to experience this yourself. The third phase, and this is when you see masters with and Jesus told me this is like why you see images of him with beams of light coming out of his hands and he's like this. It's because he's living in this experience himself when he was on earth. Miracle mindedness, he had a mind that was shifted to only believe and see and know the miracles. He was living it himself 100%. If we don't live it, then we don't really have the authority to teach it in a way that is going to be as impactful. So miracle mastery, when the arms are open and the masters are giving, is when now you've let yourself integrated so much that when you give it, you're giving from the overflow. And that's really important, that you're giving from the overflow. It means you abide in peace always. And that's the most important thing. Am I loving this? Am I enjoying this? Am I at peace? When you are, then you are the embodiment of it that then has the authority to have words or to have actions that then can give it to others. And he said to me, this is how that works, miracle mastery. By the time you hit miracle mastery, you can only keep what you give away. And so you get more love when you give love. You get more peace when you give peace. You get more joy when you give joy. Those are the only things that matter. What a master cares about are the things you can give away to keep. So that's the third phase of it. So and Mark and Renee have been helping me get this course done in a way that I can get it out to people as a foundation to be able to kind of blow your mind with miracle mindedness, but then know how to live it with miracle matrixing, and then own that you're a master of it with miracle mastery. And that's the part of it. I've had people who have taken the class say to me, they can't stop. They watched it like 6-7 times because there's so many pieces of this. I got it right from Jesus. He told me this is what you're supposed to teach. And I didn't know that that's actually what I was doing with people, that was helping them so significantly jump worlds to get into that miraculous world.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yes.
Such a rich question. And I love that I got to set up the E3. And again, you brought Renee into the conversation. Renee is a wizard behind the curtain. She helps to take all of this. And Maureen has just this massive library of content there's this main course that we just want to make it easy for people to flow through it. And so I'm so excited that that's like just now
Almost,
ready,
yeah.
finally.
There at the as we speak. So I think you asked that as an inspired question too, because I've been having so much behind the curtain, not feeling like I had the capacity to, what if I open the doors and people in pain start coming? This is a kind of a painful world at the moment. I didn't know how to do that until Mark showed up and Renee showed up into my life, that I could feel like, oh, phew, people who are aware and conscious can have my back here, so that I can kind of not have to do all the tech myself, but things are breaking behind the scenes and that kind of thing. So I'm happy that we're right there now to put it out.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
on your
It was fun to hear more about this. I'm super excited for me to dive more into the program, and I have so many other things to follow up with you on. But I know we're wrapping up here. Bob and Noelle, I can't believe it's been 90 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Been fascinating, but I still want to ask a few questions.
Okay.
First, I want to tell a synchronicity. Mark told me that you met through Deborah Poneman.
Yes.
Well, Deborah Poneman and Bob and Noelle go back even before Barbara Marx Hubbard.
Wow.
To Barbara DeAngelis, and we are actually in the same. I don't know if you want to call it class, but the same
Transformational
circle with her.
No, is that Fairfield?
You guys are all amazing. Anytime she yeah, you guys are all amazing, because not only are you amazing transformational beings yourself, but what you've all brought to the planet in your own unique voices is just incredible. And what you've been doing and laying the groundwork for people with is just, I just think it's amazing, because you can tell you can't not do this.
Exactly.
All of you came here to do this. Same thing, like all of us, we came here to do this. There's just no way that we could be normal and pretend we're normal.
Yeah, it doesn't work anymore. Thank you for that. I accept that, and thank you.
Yeah, Noelle is not normal.
I know, I could tell.
No.
I always thought I wanted to be normal. Then I found out it was just the name of a town in Illinois where they made the IQ test. I went, what? But I want to know if you ever had conversation with Jesus about some of the, I'm going to say, misguided interpretations of his life on the planet.
Yeah, this is the thing. He lives what he teaches, and he says, focus on the grace, let the pain die of neglect. Who cares what people think? I'm just going to be who I am, and if they're going to find me when they do and how they do. And the thing about Jesus is that, he says this in A Course in Miracles. Look, you're just like me. He literally says that you're just like me. And if you don't believe me, I'll wait. And he's like our elder brother who gets that this is challenging for humans, and that, but he abides in timelessness. So he doesn't see this as any more than a blip on the screen of unconsciousness in the scheme of, truth and oneness. And also he's pretty darn at one with the divine. And so he knows that this is just us playing out a mad dream, but it's an impossible dream. It's an impossible dream. And we can dream this and make ourselves scared and make ourselves be feeling that we're separate from the divine, but that will never be true. And he knows that. So it's sort of, okay, have your little temper tantrums, do what you think you have to do. It's kind of funny and fun and engaging. And it's the same thing as that voice that, now you see how I see. The divine only sees this as hilarious. It's hilarious. It's a joke. You can't even die. You can't do things that the humans have believed are true for millennia. And so there's no big commotion going on. It's just a big fat illusion that we get very creative with in multiple ways. Too bad we have these kind of crazy tendencies to make it so dramatic.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with David Hoffmeister, who does a lot of teaching.
I don't know him personally, but I've seen his things because, he's very good on search engine stuff. He's like the first guy who pops up. If I'm searching for a passage or something, he often pops up, and I like him. He's very calm and normal and things. So
Joyful.
yeah.
Joyful. Yeah, he's living
Very
it.
joyful. And same thing, you can see, people will mention things. I've only watched a couple of his videos and things, but I noticed that if people ask him dramatic things, he'll default back to the peaceful perspective too. And it's not that, you're ignoring anyone's drama, but don't go down that dark rabbit hole too much, because you're going to convince yourself of all kinds of things that you're going to have to walk your way back up at it. So it's much more fun to say, but how about this? Or let's look at it this way instead.
Yeah, I like his quote. He says, "A Course in Miracles is like spiritual psychotherapy."
Well, it is actually
It's a mind training program. I mean, it's
yeah, no, it is, because Helen Schuckman herself was a psychotherapist. So she has that whole intellectual part in there that she couldn't let go of. And then he comes in, saying, well, this is what I want you to take down. And she's like fighting with him every step of the way. So that's a fun story itself too, about how it all came to be. Yeah.
For you, and not just for students of the course, is maybe you can relate this to your journey with your family, is when we get so far along in some of these understandings, whether it's studying the course or many other things, how to relate to the rest of the family that
I love that.
At the same place on the path.
I love that.
They're on their path, but
right. It's easier than it appears to be, because once you get it that every one of us is a god or a goddess, and we're all having various degrees of capacity to pretend we're not, then it is easier to just notice that it takes a degree of humility to connect with the self of us that's the god or goddess, to be able to see that and nothing else in anyone always. So you don't have to fix or change anybody. You just have to be who you are. And as you're who you are, you're not like, you don't miss a blip on the screen. There's not a second of time that you're not loved and feeling the love. And then they feel that, they're drawn to that, but they also feel something else. You're not judging them. You're not assessing them. You're not needing them to do anything, because you're already abiding in wholeness and at oneness. That's where the rubber really meets the road. We think it's about us, like, with movements and things like that. Very important to know this, that you can't fix a problem from a place of separation. So if you see the plastic pollution and it upsets you, and every night you wake up like with heart palpitations because of it, then you're going to fix it. Good luck, because you're going to find every obstacle inherent in that. But if you come, like I live in Cambridge, where there's MIT and Harvard. I've been to a lot of things at MIT where we've got the most amazing geniuses budding everywhere that can figure out how to use plastic to make fuel. They know how to do these things, but they aren't getting the funding yet, because too many people are in fear and still funding trillions of dollars towards war and all the things that our resources go to, when we already have the solutions. That's the thing about the dream. As soon as we dream a problem, the solution is inherent in the dream. We cannot be left comfortless, period. The divine has our back. And so all of these things are already available to us, but what do we focus on? So we, as the light beings here, have to remind people, ignore that for now, not your business, too much trouble, too much angst, too much problem. Focus on this, bring this to life, focus on the grace, let the pain die of neglect. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of something Barbara Marx Hubbard always said. He said, our crisis is the birth, and that all the solutions are already on the planet. Yeah,
there you go. They are, and it's just for us to be the creatives that we are. Look, we're divine. The great creator, we're the rays of the sun. We have every bit of capacity. This is out of A Course in Miracles. We have every bit of capacity as the great creator. We just can't recreate the creator. The divine is always going to be all love and nothing but. We can't recreate that. But we can and have everything up to and including the same capacity as our divinity if we align with that completely. There's another line in A Course in Miracles that I think is important to kind of highlight here. I found it just recently, a couple of days ago, and I thought it was hilarious. Another one of those like gems. You cannot commit completely some of the time. Think about that. If you're committed to being divine, because you are, it's only going to wake you up because you already are. It's just going to wake you up to reality. And you're committed to being divine all the time, meaning that if somebody else does something that bothers you, don't look there. Look to your divinity. Let yourself shine more. Then when you are committed to that divinity in you and in everyone else, can't be some of the time, has to be always. That's true commitment. And that's the path to awakening.
Hmm.
Pretty fun. And I have to tell you, I do have to say, on the other side of this, when I wasn't awake yet, that kind of a statement, I'd say, yeah, right. Just the same way I was saying, yeah, right to Jesus when I'm reading the book and hearing you're the light of the world today. It sounds really hard, but being the one who's focusing on the angst is 1,000 times harder. It's so much easier to be who you are and just relax. Everyone's doing the best they can. Everyone's doing the best they can based on the various degrees of unconsciousness that they're living. If they don't know who they are, they can't love themselves. How are they going to love anybody else? So it's our business to love ourselves no matter what, until we kind of close that gap between what the divine knows and what we don't know. And all of a sudden, it feels like we're being caught up and consumed by our own divinity. And there's nothing better. And there's nothing that we want more. That's what we came here for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this has been a joy. Just a joy.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
I know, it's just so special. And Mark, I hope you alert us, Maureen, when this course is completed and out there and ready. And maybe we will do this again. And yeah.
So let me just tell you, what we do is we help to create a customer journey. The customer journey starts with the initial offering, which is her Miracles Guide to the Galaxy. Start with that, and then you'll get to experience her customer journey into the invitations and everything else. And I invite you to experience it because I'm really pleased with the way that Maureen integrates the coaching from not only from me and from Renee, but from copywriting guides and everything. But her voice just comes through so real and authentically. Even her emails and the follow-ups that you get, you will create transformation. So you will enjoy being a part of that journey.
Yeah. And from that Miracle Workers Guide to the Galaxy, there's a 7-day challenge, Live in the Miracle Challenge. So that answers your question as well. Because again, it's not just to have a fun experience that then here today, gone tomorrow. It's the 7-day Live in the Miracle Challenge kind of lets you say, okay, well, how do you live this part of the book and how do you live this the next day? So it's a fun, and all that's just part of the journey for free and lets people come in on a nice, fun runway.
Great explanation. Perfect. Thank you, Maureen.
Awesome. I don't know, Lynn, did you want to jump in here at all? Here, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
She's looking for mute.
There we go.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, it was very nice to be with everyone. Yeah, I started out with Barbara Marx Hubbard way back when Noelle and Bob did, and I met her a few times, lived all that stuff as a guide. So this has been really wonderful. I'm familiar with the Course in Miracles. I do apply it in my life, and I work with frequency.
I didn't know.
And I agree with so much that you said. It's just been a real joy. And unlike the writings and the teachings of larger groups, I work with individuals. And I see the light in them. Perfect. And I see the potentiality, and I magnetize to me, because everything's synchronicity, as you spoke, those individuals that are at the stage of change to move past the illusions and into their healing and wholeness. So all of this blends just beautifully.
Perfect.
And yeah.
And you can feel it. You're really receptive to this because you know this, because you live it. And then
I live it.
also feeling you know this as well, being someone who does that kind of work. You can't give without receiving when you're doing that. It's impossible. You know that every day that you do that, it appears like you're helping someone else, but how it aligns you with your own divinity is the most powerful gift. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you, Maureen. It was just wonderful to meet you. Mark, you
Nice to
know,
meet you
we have a
too.
love affair. It's been
And
going
let's
on
just
for quite a
thank Barbara
while.
for bringing us all together right now. Yay, Barbara.
Every day.
Tiny Barbara.
Yeah,
Thank
she's
you so
liquid.
much. Thank you. Thank you. I
That's-
appreciate
that's,
all
uh,
of you. Thank you, Mark, for holding the space.
My pleasure. Yes, and thank you,
Listen
Bob and
to
Noel.
timelessness.
Just, we'll have you back. We'll have you back. We just have to
Thank
have
you
you
so
back.
much. I'll look
Just
forward.
signed up for the book.
Okay.
Did you get it? Okay, good. You did?
Okay.
All right. I love this.
I actually have a client call now.
Oh, okay.
We're way over.
Hour, so I have to jump off, but I love you. Thank you so
Love you
much.
too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much. Good
Client
night.
calls at 9:40 at night. That's a
Bye.
miracle. Bye now.